Our story begins inside of the Jedi Temple as Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Mace Windu, and Plo Koon stand around a communications table watching a message sent in from Darth Maul himself. Maul was long thought dead after the Battle of Naboo, and yet here he was, slaughtering innocents, telling Kenobi to come to him, alone, or the entire planet will burn. And Obi-Wan had no choice. Windu tried protesting, saying this was far too dangerous, but Obi-Wan told the Council that he has to finish what he started long ago on Naboo, and Obi-Wan would leave the communications room with his head spinning. His memories of Maul were painful. He watched Qui-Gon die, and Obi-Wan touched the dark side for the first time fighting Maul. He fought with pure power, and he lost. If it weren't for him hanging on and flipping out of the reactor shaft, he would have died that day. And now, Maul was back, so Obi-Wan prepared to finish this on the planet Raydonia. Across the galaxy, on Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker was tracking the rogue assassin, Asajj Ventress. He was assigned to this mission after the reports of Dathomir being slaughtered, as the Jedi wanted to know more about what happened. And Anakin tracked her all the way here to the Mos Eisley Cantina. Anakin couldn't wait to get off this wretched planet, and as he sat in the bar and spotted Ventress, he was about to make his move when she got up and piqued Anakin's interest. Ventress just locked up a bounty mission. She was going to be tracking the Zabrak that Anakin knew was wanted just as much as Ventress by the Jedi. So, as Anakin watched Ventress take on this mission to track down Savage Opress, Anakin followed Ventress through a tracker onto her ship, and as Ventress jumped to hyperspace, Anakin was right behind her. And far away on the planet Raydonia, Obi-Wan Kenobi would walk through the burning town that Maul has destroyed, and Kenobi soon finds Darth Maul waiting for him in front of a raging fire. Maul, with his new legs, taunts Kenobi, and Kenobi is ready to finish this when suddenly Maul's brother Savage jumps from behind a building, attacking Obi-Wan, making it a 2 versus 1 that Obi-Wan was not at all expecting. This battle would be quick, and it would not be long before the two Zabrak brothers knocked Kenobi out, and they dragged his body over to the large supply ship. He was now their prisoner, and Maul planned to make Kenobi suffer, as he had suffered. And on the ground, Asajj Ventress landed her ship, and almost immediately, a Jedi ship with Anakin Skywalker landed right next to her. Anakin sarcastically asked if she needs a hand, and Ventress just told Anakin that the Jedi better pay her a fortune when she kills Savage for them. Anakin said they'll do it together, and he'll put in a good word for her with the Council, as long as she comes back with him to Coruscant. Ventress sneered, laughing dryly, saying she'll die before speaking with the Jedi. Anakin silently just thought, that can be arranged, and they both suddenly saw the supply ship lifting off the ground, so they sprinted after it, jumping on board, hiding in the storage area. Once inside, Anakin was hiding behind a pillar, and he was shocked to find not only Savage, but also Obi-Wan and another Zabrak. Anakin honestly closed his eyes for a moment in just pure disbelief at how him and Obi-Wan seemed to always end up together. But his thoughts would be interrupted as Maul threw Obi-Wan into a stack of boxes, saying he is still as weak as ever before he punched Obi-Wan, hissing with a mocking voice that they actually call Obi-Wan Master. And Obi-Wan just sarcastically said that when he cut Maul in half, he should have aimed for his neck instead. And now Anakin realized exactly who this was, and he decided to reveal himself to everyone, yelling down to Maul that he gets it. Obi-Wan's sense of humor can get quite exhausting. Maul and Savage both growled in anger at this intrusion, and Obi-Wan couldn't help but chuckle. Of course Anakin was here. And on the other side, Ventress would ignite her 2 blades. Anakin jumped down, pulling Kenobi's blade from Maul's belt to his hands, and he attacked Maul, while Ventress attacked Savage, and Anakin was able to get Obi-Wan his lightsaber back. Blades of red and blue would now clash violently within these narrow corridors of the supply ship. Anakin's strikes were ferocious, saber clashing hard against Savage's brute strength. Ventress flowed in beside Anakin, her twin red blades weaving through Savage's angry onslaught, as Obi-Wan fought behind them, his own defensive form unwavering, but strained by Maul's ruthless aggression. The ship shuddered under the intensity of their battle. Panels were ripping from walls as force pushes shattered boxes. Together, Anakin and Ventress force pushed Savage hard into the control area of the ship, and his horns pierced the navigation controls, as the ship now stopped flying up. Savage and Maul were forced onto the ship ramp, and both of them jumped to the top of the ship. Wind roared as the Jedi and Ventress followed, and their duel continued on the ship's exterior. Savage's powerful swings forced Anakin and Ventress to the edge of the hull, his sheer strength shaking the entire vessel. Maul's movements were precise, eyes burning with vengeance as he pressed Obi-Wan back to the edge. Ventress leaped at Savage, spinning with deadly elegance, but a crushing punch from his massive arm sent her hurtling off the ship, disappearing into the clouds below. Anakin reached out for her, but Ventress was gone, and Savage angrily told Anakin that Kenobi will be gutted by Maul, just like his master, Qui-Gon Jinn, and there is nothing he can do about it. Savage knew that pushing a Jedi into anger could make them unbalanced, but he didn't know who Anakin truly was. He pushed Anakin into using the furnace of power that burned inside of his heart, and as Anakin touched the dark side, his attacks became more powerful, and Savage was barely hanging on. On the other side of the ship, Obi-Wan's defenses began to falter as Maul continued to taunt him about the darkness, about Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan's strikes were wild, face contorted in anger as he tried to silence this ghost of his past. Maul exploited the weakness mercilessly, and a powerful kick sent Obi-Wan sprawling to the edge of the ship, his saber spinning off of it as Maul's blade descended to cut off both of Obi-Wan's hands, ending the duel. Anakin saw this, and his fury only made him stronger. Savage swung down on him, but Anakin sidestepped, and with a perfect cut, he swung up and cut through the neck of Savage. A final gasp escaped his throat before Savage fell dead in 2 pieces. Maul angrily and despairingly yelled out, and then he slashed Kenobi across the chest, kicking him off of the ship. Anakin had to choose between defeating Maul or saving Kenobi, and there was never truly a choice. He jumped after his former master, diving through the clouds, and Anakin used the Force to catch Obi-Wan before landing hard on the ground, but landing safely with the Force helping him. Anakin looked to Obi-Wan, missing both hands, and with a slash across his chest. Obi-Wan coughed painfully, and he told Anakin that Maul will come for him now, and Obi-Wan's head fell back. Anakin ran as fast as he could to his ship, getting Obi-Wan on board, blasting off back to Coruscant to get him help. And aboard the supply ship, Maul was festering in his anger. He'd defeated Kenobi, but his anger for Kenobi was now replaced with pure hatred for this other Jedi that had joined him, the Jedi that had killed his brother. Maul swore to himself that he would avenge Savage. He will make this Jedi pay with endless suffering, no matter what it takes. And so, as Anakin would eventually return to the temple with Obi-Wan and get him to a Bacta tank, the Jedi doctors said Obi-Wan was alive, but in critical condition, and they told Anakin to try and rest. Of course, Anakin would get zero rest, and instead would walk the temple, wondering if he could have done better. He killed Savage, Ventress was gone, but Maul was loose, and Obi-Wan was terribly injured. He would speak with Yoda, Windu, and eventually Ahsoka and Padme, as those would be his biggest help to ground himself. And Anakin would eventually find himself back in the war, as Obi-Wan was still in a coma for a long while, and Anakin just had to distract himself. And over these next few months, Maul dedicated every single second of his time to finding out everything he could about Skywalker, so he could destroy him. Maul didn't want to just kill him, he wanted to take everything from Anakin. And so, Maul started with the HoloNet, learning that Anakin is essentially the poster boy of this war. He was often pictured with Palpatine, and his nickname was the Hero with No Fear. And Maul also learned that Anakin commanded the 501st Legion. So Maul waited, and soon, the captain of that legion would go on a mission to Onderon. Maul followed, slipping through shadows, evading Republic patrols with ease. There, Maul would ambush Captain Rex, capturing him, and Maul would probe Rex's mind for the answers he was looking for. Memories flooded Maul's senses, Anakin's uncanny abilities, his victories, his struggles, but one revelation gripped him the most. There was a prophecy of the Chosen One that Rex had learned about. Maul's eyes burned with understanding. This was no ordinary Jedi. Anakin was destined to reshape the galaxy. But there was something else here, an attachment that Rex knew about deep down. Maul pushed harder, and he found it. The senator from Naboo. And Maul had what he needed. He erased this memory from Rex's mind before throwing him back with his men to eventually just be discovered. And now, determined to uncover every facet of Anakin's existence, Maul descended upon Coruscant to learn more of this senator. His hunt was relentless, and soon he cornered Sabe, Senator Amidala's trusted handmaiden, and Maul did the same thing to her mind. Images would surge before him once more, and Maul found the truth that Sabe knew about. Anakin and Padme were bound by a secret marriage. Maul's twisted smile grew as he pieced together the implications, and in Sabe's mind, Maul found there was more to Anakin than prophecy and love. There was pain. There was a darkness lurking beneath his strength. And Maul would learn that Anakin's early life on Tatooine forged this darkness. So, Maul's continued quest would lead him to Tatooine, and after putting the pieces together from old records, he confronted Owen Lars under the Twin Suns, effortlessly breaking the man's mind to learn of Anakin's life as a slave, the death of Shmi, and Maul now understood the boy's power, his fears, his love, and his inevitable fall. Maul could see why Palpatine was so obsessed with Anakin. He was ripe to be turned to the dark side and be the next Sith apprentice. But Maul had other plans. The seeds of Anakin's destruction were laid bare before him, ready to be exploited. He would avenge his brother, and so within a few days, as Padme Amidala was returning home on Naboo for a family celebration, she entered her old home to find it quiet, empty, but with furniture wrecked and thrown across the room. She pulled out her blaster, but it was ripped from her hands as a red lightsaber ignited, and Darth Maul told Padme she will be coming with him. Later that same night, inside of his Jedi Temple quarters, Anakin would sit down on his bed and take a deep breath. He just visited Obi-Wan, who was still in a coma after 2 months, and Anakin switched on his communicator. He was going to talk with Padme tonight, who was back home around her family. Anakin really needed this, but as the signal connected, Anakin would instead see a hologram of Darth Maul show up, lightsaber ignited at Padme's neck, as she was inside of a ray shield prison. Anakin angrily stood up and told Maul he will kill him for this, and for Obi-Wan, and Maul laughed, telling Anakin he knows everything there is to know about him, and that if he wants to see Padme alive ever again, he will do exactly what Maul asks. Anakin felt powerless, and he had no choice, telling Maul he will do what he asks, just please keep Padme alive. Maul's smile grew as he told Anakin his instructions were simple. Kill Chancellor Palpatine, and then he will reveal his location to him. Before Anakin could respond, the hologram blinked out, and Anakin was left alone. Anakin looked down at the floor, and he made a choice. He would always choose Padme over anyone, including Palpatine. He was not thinking straight. All he knew was that he needed to get Padme back. Maybe he should have asked the Jedi for help. Maybe he should have told Palpatine about what was going on. But Anakin just grabbed his lightsaber, and he flew over to the executive building. Anakin didn't know why Maul wanted him to do this, but for Maul, it was perfect. He knew that Anakin was Palpatine's perfect student for his empire. So having Anakin betray him like this would be Maul's perfect revenge for Palpatine discarding of him after Naboo. And Anakin would fly his speeder up to Palpatine's window, and as Palpatine was working at his desk, he felt his throat begin to tighten. Sidious grasped at it, and he turned his chair to see a speeder just outside with a hooded man reaching a hand out. Sidious smashed his window before spinning out of the office, igniting his red blade and swinging down on whoever this was. Anakin had just enough time to ignite his own blade, and as they locked together, Anakin and Sidious made eye contact, with both of them suddenly filled with shock. Sidious couldn't believe Anakin would do this to him, and Anakin couldn't believe that Palpatine was a Sith. But Anakin focused solely on Padme in this moment, thinking only of her, and he broke free of this lightsaber lock, using Palpatine's surprise against him, to stab Palpatine right through the heart. And Anakin would watch him die before throwing his body back into the office, along with his red blade. And Anakin would send an anonymous message to the Jedi Temple, telling them that Palpatine is a Sith, and he's dead in his own office. Anakin then contacted Maul, and Maul answered with his eyes closed, saying he can feel in the Force that Anakin has done it. His Sith Master is finally dead at the hands of his most prized student. Anakin could barely grasp what Maul was saying. He just angrily told Maul to tell him where Padme is. And so Maul did. He told Anakin that he is on Nar Krita, a planet controlled by the Hutts, and he will be waiting here with Padme for Anakin. And so, Anakin took off for Nar Krita right as the Jedi Council members and a huge squad of clones ran up to Palpatine's office to find his body with his Sith lightsaber. And before long, Anakin would land on the Hutt planet, and he would be escorted up to the main hall, where Maul had Padme suspended in a ray shield prison. When Anakin arrived, Padme was electrocuted immediately, and Maul told Anakin he will now surrender, and Anakin will accept his new life as a slave once more, or Padme dies. Anakin wanted to rip this room apart, kill Maul and everyone in here, but Padme had snipers aiming right at her. Any single move would certainly get her killed, and all Anakin cared about was getting her alive. Darth Maul's laughter echoed through the room as he tortured her, the weight of the choice crushing him, but he knew there was no other way. And Anakin threw away his saber. It clattered to the ground as the slavers shackled his wrists, their chains cold and heavy as they restrained his ability to use the Force. He locked eyes with Padme one last time before they dragged him away, his silent promise echoing in his mind. He would find a way to save them both. But it was nearly impossible, and from here, 3 entire months would pass by in agony. The Hutts took sick pleasure in sending the Chosen One back into the life that he'd escaped. A slave, broken and powerless, and Anakin toiled beneath the blistering sun here, his body battered by exhaustion, as he was forced, with thousands of others, to build ships and weapons for Maul and his crime syndicates. The Force was a distant whisper here, crushed beneath the collar around his neck that burned whenever he tried to call on it. He watched other slaves suffer, their faces hollow, hope extinguished long ago. But Anakin knew he could not give in. He tried to escape again and again, but each attempt was met with brutal retaliation. For every step he tried to take, 100 innocent lives were executed in Anakin's name. Their blood would stain his soul, and soon they all looked at him with hatred, whispers of contempt, or a constant reminder of Anakin's failures. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and Anakin's spirit withered, his strength diminishing. He was haunted by visions of Padme suffering, her cries echoing in his dreams, and yet he kept a sliver of hope, searching for a way out. But the slaves turned on him, blaming him for their suffering. Their hatred was like a knife twisting in his heart, and eventually, Anakin stopped resisting, resigned to his fate. The chains around his wrists, now mirrored by the chains around his soul. And out in the galaxy, over these 3 months, the Clone War was coming to an end with the death of Palpatine. His secret allegiance with Dooku was discovered, and the Separatists would turn on their leader until both Dooku and Grievous were left with the droids and with no support, and they both would die in a grand battle above Raxus. Peace was returning to the galaxy, but the Jedi were out searching for Anakin. His disappearance was so sudden, without warning, and Ahsoka was one of the last people holding out hope that Anakin was alive. And on Nar Krita, Anakin did live, but he didn't have any hope for himself any longer. He was living, only to keep Padme alive as well. But finally, hope would arrive in the form of a familiar face for Anakin. One night, as the moon of Nar Krita hung low, a man pulled Anakin into the shadows. Anakin's eyes widened as he suddenly recognized this man to be Kitster, his childhood friend from Tatooine. Freed from slavery long ago, Kitster had dedicated his own life to liberating others. And now, he'd come to Nar Krita. He'd come for Anakin after learning of this slaving prison here. Kitster's band of freedom fighters would move in swiftly and silently, slipping through the cracks of the fortress that had held Anakin prisoner. They struck at the core, disabling security systems, dispatching guards before they could even raise the alarms. Anakin would watch in awe as Kitster worked, and for the first time in months, Anakin felt the chains around his soul begin to loosen. Kitster would lead him to the communication center, where Anakin quickly sent out a distress signal to the Jedi Temple, fingers trembling as he transmitted his plea for help. And his message would be received. Meanwhile, Kitster and his fighters moved to the power control room, planting explosives, and soon the fortress shuddered as the generators overloaded, power flickering before plunging the facility into darkness. In the chaos, the ray shield imprisoning Padme collapsed, dropping her to the floor. She bolted from her cell, heart pounding as she navigated the halls. Maul's presence loomed behind her, his rage palpable as he searched for this lost captive. Maul would kill her right now, but the darkness concealed her escape, and freed slaves flooded this compound, rage erupting in a tidal wave of rebellion. Maul cut through them mercilessly, his crimson blade painting the walls in blood, but they were unrelenting, driven by a lifetime of pain and vengeance, and they would swarm him, overwhelming Maul's defenses, forcing him back towards the landing platform where he knew he could escape. Maul's yellow eyes widened with fury of failure here, but he saw his ship. He ran to it to get out of here. And suddenly, a squad of Republic ships emerged from the clouds, firing down and blowing up Maul's ship. And now as Maul stood at the edge of the platform, Anakin's voice spoke behind him, saying he's been waiting a long time for this. Maul ignited his blade, saying he will end Anakin's suffering, kill him and Padme today. But before Maul could strike, a Republic gunship descended from the sky, its hatch opening to reveal Obi-Wan Kenobi. With a flick of his wrist, Obi-Wan tossed a saber to Anakin, the blue blade blazing to life in Anakin's hand. And Anakin had never been happier to see Obi-Wan. He was alive and well, and Ahsoka flew the ships overhead, targeting the guards that were fighting back against this revolution. And together, Skywalker and Kenobi stood against Maul, and the duel would be fierce. Maul's movements were savage, his attacks fueled by fury and desperation, but Anakin fought with his newfound strength, his spirit renewed by the faces of those who had saved him. Obi-Wan moved with grace, his own defenses flawless, as he supported his former Padawan. They moved around Maul, blades clashing at the platform as it shuddered beneath their power. Maul's attacks grew frantic, hatred consuming him as he was driven back further and further. Anakin and Obi-Wan's unity was unbreakable, strikes precise and devastating, and they overwhelmed Maul, exploiting his anger, his hatred, his darkness. And a synchronized attack would disarm him, sabers spinning off of the platform, lost to the abyss below. Maul staggered, his eyes wide with fear and disbelief, as Anakin's blade pierced his chest, and Obi-Wan cut him in half, as he fell into the never-ending clouds below the city. It was over, and he was surely dead this time. As the dust settled, Anakin collapsed to his knees, exhaustion overtaking him. Obi-Wan stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder, his presence a reminder that Anakin was not alone. Kitster approached, his face weary but triumphant, as the freed slaves were rallying behind him. Ships were taking off, the people were free. Anakin looked at his old friend, gratitude shining through his tired eyes. And soon, Padme would emerge from the shadows, leading her own huge group of slaves to transports to be free. And she would see Anakin, her face now streaked with tears, arms wrapping around him, as he finally allowed himself to feel that love that haunted him for months. Soon they would all return to Coruscant, as Anakin and Padme would learn of the newly peaceful galaxy. And in the coming weeks, as Anakin and Padme recovered from everything, they would learn that Obi-Wan and Satine were back together, after Satine came to visit Obi-Wan while he was recovering. Obi-Wan was happy to lead the mission to rescue Anakin alongside Ahsoka, and the Jedi Council was beginning to bend their rules to allow Anakin, Obi-Wan, and others to explore attachments now. In a peaceful galaxy, the Jedi Order would settle in, as Anakin would eventually be made a master, with Ahsoka becoming a knight, and he, Padme, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Satine would soon find themselves at Dex's diner, enjoying a meal, and going over their new lives without the war. And folks, that is our video for today. This is one I wasn't sure what path, I say this a lot, but wasn't totally sure what path I wanted to go down. Knew it was something I wanted to explore, because I love doing these Clone Wars episodes where, you just kind of introduce a new element and it just shifts the entire galaxy. I wanted to do something where Maul switches from his anger about Obi-Wan to about Anakin and just explore what that would have looked like. And Anakin's got his share of pain, his share of secrets to be exploited. So Maul ventures around the galaxy, probes the minds of Rex, Sabe, Owen, and then erases their minds so they forget that happened, and just, learns everything he needs to know, and just torments Anakin, putting him into the life that he hated. I enjoyed that. I mean, it was fun. I really liked the ending with Obi-Wan being back, and the two of them, the two that Maul hates the most, they kill Maul. Sorry, Maul. Yeah, he's dead this time. He's really dead. So that was our story. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Let me know what you thought down below. Had to introduce a little Kitster cameo. Check that one out. Hope you enjoyed that. Videos over the next week are going to be kind of sporadic, we'll see, because I'm going on a week-long kind of last-minute trip, but hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.